Well, now to South Africa, where the central bank has raised the cost of borrowing to 5.5%. The bank's governor said the depreciation of the rand exchange rate was the primary cause of the rate rise. Our Africa business correspondent Loretta Mbele sends us this report and this analysis.
The South African Reserve Bank says its decision to raise interest rates has been influenced by a depreciating currency and rising inflation in the country. Now, this is the boldest move that's been taken by the central bank since the global credit crisis. Until now, the central bank had opted for a softer approach, hoping that by keeping interest rates lower, it would stimulate domestic borrowing and local investment. But with growth stuck at around 2%, it's clear that some of these policies are not working. Added to that is the fact that the average South African consumer is highly indebted. Some say as much as 70% of average incomes, and unemployment is at about 25%. That means that inflation will rise in South Africa, most probably above the threshold of 6% that the central bank has set itself. The South African currency is another indicator. Experts say that since 2012, the South African rand has lost about 16% of its value against the US dollar. That's mainly because of worries of what the impact of the withdrawal of quantitative easing will do to world markets. And so, like other emerging markets, South Africa's currency is vulnerable to speculators. Now, all in all, these are the factors that the central bank has had to consider: sluggish growth, a volatile currency, rising consumer debts, and when you add to that the continued labor unrest on South Africa's mines, who are a major generator of foreign earnings for the country, you realize that for now, South Africa is probably one of the more fragile of emerging market economies.
Loretta Mbele there. So what does it all mean for business in South Africa is the question. Live now to Johannesburg, and Ivor Ichikowitz, who is the executive chairman of the South African defence group Paramount. He joins us from there now. Welcome. What is your response to what you're seeing happening in South Africa right now?
I think that the rise in interest rates has come as a shock to the economy. We're in a very difficult situation at the moment. It's an election year. The central bank have a major challenge. Job creation is a major priority, and the weak rand has definitely helped the export industry. But by increasing interest rates, it's going to seriously affect the consumer. And unfortunately, in an election year, the cost of living is a critical factor. And I think that the country is facing some real serious challenges. From a manufacturing point of view, I would like to see a continued weak rand. There's no doubt that our competitiveness in the export markets has increased substantially. And there is also no doubt that that's helped to create jobs. But the reality that we face is difficult.
It will indeed. Where do you see the genesis of this problem in South Africa or the central bank in the United States?
There's no doubt that this is a result of the global situation. I think the South African economy has been seriously affected by what's going on elsewhere in the world. And in the past, the economy has been very much regulated and controlled. But today we have a free-floating currency. We're part of a global environment, and we have to learn to deal with the volatility that results in.
So how do you see the economy going forward? Do you see this as a short-term hit? And in fact, as, for example, the US central bank, the reaction to what's happening at the US central bank really dissipates, that actually rates will be able to come down again?
I would hope so. I don't think this is a short-term hit. I think the economic indicators in the country are poor. I think that there is a lot of instability because of labor unrest. I think that politically we have some challenges in this country, and I don't think this is a short-term situation. I also am not all that confident that the rest of the world is going to recover all that fast.
But other companies, I'm not suggesting that yours would benefit from this necessarily, but other companies must be finding that the underlying dynamic in Africa, which is one of a growing middle class, is positive for them.
I think that's right. The sentiment in the rest of Africa is extremely positive. I've never seen such positive sentiment elsewhere in Africa, and it's a bit sad that South Africa is lagging behind the rest of the continent, but this is, in my opinion, why Africa's time has come. South Africa has always been seen as leading the African continent, and the truth is that the African continent as a whole is starting to emerge, and South Africa will now follow to a certain extent. there's no doubt that from our perspective, from Paramount's perspective, as we sell defense equipment around the world, we are becoming extremely competitive. We're becoming major players in the global market because of the weakness of the currency. But the growth in the rest of Africa is also creating opportunity for South African exporters and for ourselves. I'm very bullish on Africa at the moment.
Ivor, thank you very much indeed.